want to consider going back. And Dwayne Haskins, Ohio State, another young player. I see flashes. But last year I thought Sam Darnold was a stud. I thought Baker Mayfield, when I saw him in person in Mobile, my opinion of him changed drastically. Because I could just see that, hey, he does have those intangibles. And he, oh, by the way, does have a legitimate arm. Whereas I wasn't giving him credit, when I was watching tape. But when I saw him in person, and I saw Josh Rosen in person. I love the accuracy. I mean, my point is I saw a lot of quarterbacks last year who I thought were further along than some of these quarterbacks this year, even though they may have more just God-given ability. So last question then as far as quarterbacks. Do you think it's an above average group, average, or below average?
I think it's average, but again, it's a little bit above because there's some guys stepping up now.
There are.
And as you're well aware, and it doesn't mean where they're drafted because everybody thinks, okay, you're a top 10 pick, you got to be a superstar. But it's not a bad crew. It's really not. It's again, I don't want to get into names, but I have a handful right now that I think are legit, if not number ones coming out, which is tough, but solid twos their first 2 or 3 years and have a chance to be ones.
Gotcha. Yeah. And
yeah.
If you think that, then obviously there's going to be teams who are going to be willing to draft those players early because they're hoping the same thing, that they're going to possibly be the backups a year or two, as they get acclimated to the NFL, but then will be compete for starting spots. And,
correct.
Obviously that's going to warrant a high draft pick. And so who knows? We shall see if this draft class winds up being as strong as it could be, because there are definitely some talent.
Well, yeah. At quarterback, it's going to be unique because as you're well aware, every year they go higher than they should.
Yeah.
Because teams go get them. And the thing about it, it's going to be such a heavy defensive line first round, where teams are going to say, well, let's take the quarterback here because we can get defensive linemen in the second round because there's so many of them.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Now, we got a lot of football still left, but it's the quarterback crew's not too shabby, not too bad.
No, I do. I have to. If you would ask me this question entering the year, I would have said it's below average.
I agree.
But as time has gone on, I have been impressed. I mean, I didn't know who Gardner Minshew was for Washington State mentioned, and I'm not saying that he is among those players, but he's got something to him. And this kid at Duke's got something to him.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking just first rounders.
Yeah.
There's guys that are sneaking up the board from the standpoint of just they're having good years, and you can't knock them for it. It's going to be a pretty good crew. It's going to be a pretty good crew. I'm sorry. Good crew. But not just, I'm not just saying first round. It's not going to be like last year, not even close. But, in the first 4 to 5 rounds, you're going to see some quarterbacks going.
No, I agree. I think that you are going to see a lot of quarterbacks. I personally think we're going to see more quarterbacks go in day 2 than we will on day 1. But I do think that there's going to be more quarterbacks go than say a typical year, and that number would only jump up obviously if we saw a bunch of these underclassmen come out. Well, one last thing I heard your ringtone and it reminded me of the fact that I wanted to ask you. I know you're a mover and a shaker now, Scott. You talk to people all the time. I don't know that you're in position to break any stories, but this Eli Apple trade just happened. Is there any players out there, any teams out there that you're hearing might be looking for players? Or I just wanted to at least give you that option. That way, if you had anything you wanted to whisper is, hey, this guy might get traded, or I heard this team is looking for this, that if you wanted to share, then give you that opportunity.
You know what? Not really. I hear the same stuff everybody hears.
Okay.
Peterson, and they swear they're not going to move them, but I think they would for the right price.
Yeah.
Really, really good football player. No, I'm not hearing And, you know, I don't want to hear because then I get in trouble because I'm the one leaking the story.
I hear you there too. But it's always, I mean, I have to do my, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask the question. And
no, it's a good question. It's a good question, but I don't know, and it's hard to trade right now because, unless you have a legit injury to one of your really good players and you're a legit team, then you can do it. But you're doing what the Raiders are doing. You're giving up picks, or what other teams are doing for the Raiders, giving up picks, and that's tough because you have to live and die through the draft and drafting good players. You have to.
Well, and that's the point. That's the point I wanted to make is that I'm reading some of these, some very qualified and writers I respect and I know are clued in that are predicting that there's going to be a lot more trades this year, and I think that that's possible because I think that we are in an era now. Just real quick, in an era here where people have to make moves, otherwise they get fired. But at the same time, I do think this defensive line class is so extraordinary that I don't know that teams are going to be willing to give up many draft picks unless they are in a position to hit the ground running. Like that's why I was not at all surprised because we've heard so much about Eli Apple in New York, and we know New Orleans they're a team that right now is absolutely competing for a Super Bowl. With the Dallas Cowboys, I was surprised that they gave up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. I think he's a good player. I think that it could wind up being a big win for the Cowboys, and there's no question that Amari Cooper, at least in my opinion, is a better receiver prospect, even now at 24, than any of the receivers I see coming in at the draft at this point. But at the same time, like I said, I was surprised to see a first-round pick go for Amari Cooper in a draft class that has as many potentially difference-making players as this class could along that defensive line.
Totally agree. And it's a price of doing business, which I've done it before.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of trades and for picks and all that stuff. But I'm just telling you, because he's still young.
Yeah.
With Cooper, but still, like you said, you got to re-sign him. And you got to get the deal done now than later. You have to. So now, you're not hurting yourself if he was a legit guy for you, but you're losing out on two other guys that you could sign in free agency.
Yep.
A guard, a nose tackle, middle line guy. That's not going to cost a lot, but you're going to lose out money wise. And like I said, it's fine. Each team has their own philosophy, and vision, what they want to do with their cash, and their cap. But I mean, it's just the draft's so important from the standpoint is you get a rookie contract and you get a young guy that should be healthy, which you're going to know before the draft. But that's how you build. That's what Seattle did and won back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yep.
Won one, lost one. We did the same thing in Green Bay. Now, we signed Reggie White, which was a huge sign, but majority of that team was who Ron Wolf drafted. We won back-to-back Super Bowls. Won one, lost one.
Yeah.
But but that's how you build a roster. And you're gonna have injuries. It's a long year. Everybody right now is panicking, thinking, well, so and so's 1-6, and they might go on a 7-game win streak. And all of a sudden they're in the playoffs.
Well,
yeah.
That's the thing is that, here we are, we're, recording our 8th episode of the ISP, and, it's kind of crazy. We blink our eyes and we're halfway through the regular season, and we feel like, I talked about the Rams, the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the New Orleans Saints, my two favorite teams I've seen in the AFC and the NFC, but to your point, Scott, it will be very interesting to see if those are the same 4 teams when we get down to the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, considering that you were drafted, of course, in baseball, which we'll have to get into that story some other time. But So you have your experience in the baseball side of things as well, and here we are in the World Series. So I got to ask, I put you on the spot. Do you have a prediction for us? A team, number of games that who's gonna be hosting the World Series championship this year?
It's gonna be 7 games. It's gonna be the Dodgers. And the only reason I say that is because Al Davis had season tickets, and he let me and my dad go to the games and watch it.
I like it. Well, I'll use a similar rationale. Then, because I grew up with one of my best friends being a die-hard Boston Red Sox fan, and I grew up, because he was a Red Sox fan, I grew up as a Toronto Blue Jays fan just so I could argue with him. So there is no way that I am picking the Boston Red Sox, even though if you ask me from a talent perspective, my goodness, they are gifted. But that Dodgers starting pitching staff, I think, is a difference. And so I also am going with the Dodgers, although I think it's a little bit closer. I'm going to say 5 games rather than the 7 games.
My college roommate was Doug Mirabelli. Okay. He was a catcher for Wakefield that played like 13 years with the Red Sox.
That's your college roommate?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a Scott storytelling lead-in for next week if I've ever heard it.
Well, I got some good stories if you want them.
It's got to
be off air. It's got to be off air, though.
I was going to say, I definitely want them. We'll see if we can make them, PG. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Thank you so much for all of our listeners for listening and supporting the Instinctive Scouting Podcast. Thank you, as always, to Scot McCloughan for joining us. This and prior episodes are always available for free and immediate download at NFLDraftScout.com. For Scott, this is Rob signing off on the ISP. Catch you next week.